Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a continuation of the special permit application of Colito Development to obtain a special permit or variance of the provisions of the applicable sections of the zoning bylaws of the town of Sunderland for constructing a 9,100 square foot retail building with associate site improvements on the premises of Amherst Road, Route 116, tax map 9, plot 44, in the town of Sunderland. So this is continuous number 14. I forgot to ask if we're recording okay? Sorry. No. Already I screwed up. Okay. So I put together a draft agenda for today's hearing, and the first thing that's on the agenda is actually at the previous hearing, not this hearing, the applicant offered to do a soil evaluation and test pit, a couple test pits on the site, and that was arranged, and we had a representative from the Board of Health and the peer reviewer for the stormwater and drainage report was in attendance, and he's in attendance here today at the back, Bucky Sparkle. So I guess I received a letter, but I'd like to get, and I did forward that to the board members, but I think we'd like to, what was the findings, or I don't know if you,
would you like Mr. Sparkles?
I don't know.
You're looking at Mr. Sparkles.
No,
sorry.
You're both in the same line. You don't know who I'm looking at. I guess, Rob, since you submitted the letter,
Yep.
could you summarize the letter or tell us?
I think in general, the soil evaluations, and my understanding is Mr. Sparkle is a PE and a soil evaluator. I believe he witnessed the test pits that were conducted, as well as the Board of Health. My understanding was that they were in general agreement. I think there was one test pit that there was a subtle difference, and they wanted to double check that. Philippe Cravo, our PE on the job, specifically looked at that for the separation of groundwater and confirmed that it was still adequate. Certainly happy for Mr. Sparkle to speak for himself, but that's my understanding.
Now, the origins of this was was my concern from having input from the Conservation Commission and Ellie, who's on the Conservation Commission, questioning the groundwater levels, and since it's all Greek to me, we just decided to this would have been a condition of if the special permit was granted. They were going to do this anyways, just to verify it. So, and I had conversations with Bucky. He explained to me I was misreading the data. My understanding is that in the original, you did 12 pits for the original stormwater drainage report. It hit water on one of them. Does that sound right? Or none of them?
I'd have to look at the report. My understanding is in the area.
Well,
I'd have to go to the report, I guess.
And I was asking, I was trying to figure out where that average mean high water mark was, and I guess you have to interpret the soils to determine that, even if you don't hit water when you dig. And what I assumed were, I thought there were 6 pits that hit water, but actually I don't think. I think one maybe hit water, and most of them didn't. But there was I guess signatures in the soil that told how high the water came up. And we're doing a lousy job of describing this.
If you want Mr. Sparkle to
Well,
explain his findings, we're happy with that.
I mean, it's just more for the board's benefit as well. Bucky, can you save me? I'm going down fast.
I'm not sure the
The
saving is
applicant's
necessary.
throwing me anchors. No, not really.
Yeah, so I'm Bucky Sparkle, an engineer and a soil evaluator. I was out there some weeks ago when additional test pits were excavated, and what we saw in the field and confirmed by the Board of Health was that the original soil submittal was fairly accurate. There's always variability, every hole's different, but we found that the groundwater was in the 90 some inches and the 100 and some inches down. The holes we found were generally dry, but there was indication of reduxomorphic features, and that's what we look at to establish the groundwater level over time, because you're rarely digging a hole at the peak of a groundwater event anyway. So as a result, and with a little bit of double checking, it does seem that the original infiltration system and the main detention system are appropriately above the groundwater, so there's no issue with the original design. So it's solid.
So, I don't know, does the board have any questions about that? I mean, we received emails from a hydrology professor at UMass that I shared with you guys, that he was questioning it and stating that the state was doing some evaluation. Sunderland was one of these places where they're looking at rising groundwater. And so I was more concerned, so we just did a double check. I'm satisfied that, there's adequate separation between the filtration system and whatever groundwater or whatever the mean high water mark is. Pretty, close to 4 or 5 feet, something like that.
Yeah, the offset is more than 4 feet, depending on where you're measuring. I think 7 feet in some cases. And part of the reason for the testing is, while the soils were consistent, technically the test should be within the footprint of the actual BMP, the infiltration system. The original holes, they're exploratory. You poke around before the design and you move forward. But these just confirmed that the soils are quite consistent on site. Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, I think we. Oh, wait a minute.
Well, I mean, this isn't necessarily for Bucky, but I reviewed the letter. I didn't see a site plan. I didn't see soil logs. I don't understand how the board can be like, yeah, okay, without any data associated with it.
We had, so, I mean.
What you forwarded me was only a.
I forwarded you the letter, and I forwarded you Bucky's commentary that he agreed with that. The report, it was revised in January of this year, and I.
Well, I didn't see soil logs that went with the more recent soil investigation on June 15th. That's what I'm saying. And I would also note that we are in a drought. We are in the second, it's like the second lowest water table for June in the last 20 years. And so, there's redox indicators. We don't even have the paper that says where you saw those indicators.
I do understand. Had I not been there, I would have exactly the same concern. Because where the heck were these tests taken? Where are they on the plan?
And we need
where
to
are the
rely on
official
this.
logs?
We need this documentation. What happens in 20 years when people are asking questions?
Well, might I suggest that the plans do get updated with the information, that more than this letter fall into the record, but because I was there and I know exactly where I was standing on those sites, they were the correct test locations. We were testing what we needed, saw what we needed to see, where we needed to see it, and it came out clear. Documentation could be better.
Yeah, as far as our documentation, I don't know if Ryan was on site with you. I think it was Ryan, does that sound
It
right?
was just Philippe.
Was it
Oh, the
Philippe?
excavator? Oh, from your office, it was just Ryan.
Okay, all right, so, I'm assuming he logged these in when you guys were out there?
Oh, yeah, there were
Yeah.
2 sets of logs that I
Yeah.
watched every
So
single
we'll
character be
provide
written
them.
down. The
If you
town
want.
has a copy at the Board of Health of all of the
Okay,
logs
so they have them
already.
logged.
And they were survey located to begin with.
Yeah.
So all the data I know exists.
So just to clarify for the audience, the locations of the test pits were located with survey grade GPS, then excavated, witnessed, logged in, and those logs have been provided to the Board of Health.
Could I get those, or
Sure.
could you send them to be, so we can add it as an
Absolutely.
addendum to the?
Absolutely.
Because I think the latest version of the stormwater drainage report is January of this year.
That could be accurate. Yeah, so certainly we'll make sure that there's a supplemental
An
submission.
appendix or something,
Yeah.
I don't, however you want to put it. And, I shared your concern, Ellie, about I kept looking at the stormwater report, and I didn't see the data, and I didn't understand it. And, Lucky sort of gave me a tutorial on how to read these things. And, oh, okay, I see it. I misread it. That was not the groundwater. That was an indicator. So.
What's important to remember, for the benefit of the audience, the fact that we are in a drought is completely irrelevant to this analysis, and
Well,
that's
it's
what,
relevant
let
when you
me,
don't
I don't
have the
interrupt,
dust.
and I'd like not to be interrupted, please. May I
But,
finish?
I would
Sorry, I
prefer, Mr.
apologize.
Pill, that you let,
Then let Lucky explain it.
Could you, you explained it to me,
Sure,
because I had raised the issue back before you even got to the peer review of the stormwater thing about the drought and all that. But you explained it a lot clearer to me in our recent discussion, so.
Okay, I'll give it another shot. So, when we're looking at soils, even if we saw water in the hole, you're going to almost always ignore that, because the groundwater that you're concerned about is going to be above whatever water you find in the hole. And that's because these redoxomorphic features, commonly called models just because of their sort of shape, are created by long-term seasonal changes in groundwater. It takes, in very, very fast conditions, decades, but usually hundreds or thousands of years to create this band of color in the soil. So it doesn't matter if it's a drought, it doesn't matter if you have a flood, that soil coloration is what is going to tell you where that water gets occasionally that high. It's almost never going to get that high, but we just assume worst case scenario when we see it in the field. So the soil coloration is the standard for establishing the depth for the groundwater. And that's where we went, and we found it, and it was very clear, easy to define, and I know that there's usually a band that's somewhere in here. I watched the Board of Health and Philippe take the most conservative, highest value of that each and every time. They didn't have a problem bumping it up to be conservative. So the numbers that we have are, frankly, it might be 2,000 years till the groundwater is that high again, but it could be next spring as well. So they're going to design off of that, and I'm quite comfortable with that. And all of that's a safety factor that's already been doubled to be put into the standards, because we know there's fluctuation. We know that these measurements are, soils get a little soft every now and then. So there's quite a bit of safety factor built into the standard to begin with. And they're exceeding the standard sometimes by about twice the minimum.
And that standard is what, minimum 2 feet?
Well, for certain BMPs, but I think we're north of 4 feet above.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
but I mean, this, do you
It's
know what
4
the standard
feet
is?
when the infiltration system is also designed to attenuate or slow down the flow, as is the basin under the parking lot. That's their attenuation system. That's part of slowing it down, so we want to make sure it drains well. Otherwise, it can't do its job. So they have to have at least 4 feet. Actually, you can have less. You can do 2 feet, but then you got to do a bunch of math.
Mounting analysis.
Yeah, nobody likes that. And those are also very soft analyses, so it's nice when you can just easily say 4 feet, boom, I'm done. As it goes, oh, it's 3.5 feet, now I have to submit all these calculations based on, well, we don't want to get into that. but they're well above the standard before you would even worry about it. And 2 feet is really the functional offset that is
I seem to
necessary.
remember that before that, like 2.
Some towns have 3, but
Minimum.
the
And
standards.
faster soils, and yes.
Ellie, you got any? I mean, when it was explained to me, I was convinced that, you know, the report and the data, and it's consistent between the ones that they just did and the ones they did a couple of years ago.
Well, I don't think I can say, like, it's hard for me to say anything without seeing the logs for myself. My comment about the groundwater table was simply because based on that letter, all we saw was some groundwater data, and it made no mention of the redoxamorphic features. I'm well aware that people rely on those. I understand that the regulations rely on those. I will say that I think from my experience talking to environmental professionals, it's more common now to see levels above those redox features due to climate change. It's happening faster than the regulations can keep up with, because we all know they don't just throw out regulations willy-nilly, they do research before they do that. So it's not the kind of thing that can be captured under the regulations. It would require more study. Obviously, that's not a specific requirement of the regulations, so it's like not something that's required, not something the ZBA can, the ZBA could decide that they need to do more study, but it's not, I acknowledge it's not required under the regulations, but I will say it's entirely possible that water levels are coming up, because they are coming up widespread in Massachusetts.
The data that they got in the stormwater report and the data they got from the recent digs is based on the signatures in the soil.
Right, but I'm saying water levels now are rising in Massachusetts. Like, nobody really has an explanation beyond what climate change is doing to it. So we are now seeing levels above the redox features. So I'm just, like, I understand these are the regulations, these are the requirements now. It would be up to the ZBA if they were concerned about it beyond that, but there is the risk that in 20 years the system, like the water levels will be that much higher.
Like, what I can do is I can forward you the test report, the stormwater, the latest stormwater data, and if you can, whenever I get the supplemental stuff, I mean, the data's there, and
It should be currently a matter of public record, but we'll certainly send that through the ZBA as well, so it's available in multiple locations for sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
okay. Let's move on to the next thing. I'm not quite sure how to approach this next one. The board will recall that we hired Tig and Bond to do the traffic peer review, and having received a couple traffic studies from Bowman, and I know that I got a report from Tig and Bond, and Tig, you're Mark, right?
Yeah, I'm Matt.
Matt.
Stats from time to time.
Yeah, he's the engineer responsible for the peer review at Tig and Bond. You asked a question, does the applicant have any questions? Because I had forwarded your report to them, and that sort of opened the floodgates of communications going back and forth, and trying to keep the board up to speed, and they were coming fast and furious. And that's just a normal process that happens. I mean, the same thing happened with the stormwater. You had many back and forths between the peer reviewer and the applicant. So I know the board had some questions about the traffic study. I'm going to suggest maybe starting with your original, summarizing your original letter, because that letter You had some points and some comments and some questions, and that spurred some responses both from Bowman and from RLA, and they went back and forth a little bit. To go straight to the summary sort of misses the details, misses some of the details that the board would want answers to. So I don't know how to do any other way. I mean, but, once he goes through it, we don't have to go through every iteration. We can come to a conclusion. So, Matt, if you want to, and I believe I forwarded this.
Yes.
Yeah, I forwarded it. It's dated June 3rd. That was the original Tiger Bond peer review report. So take it away.
Okay. So Time Bond we reviewed the traffic volumes, the capacity analysis that was completed, crash data, site access, site circulation, pedestrian accommodations in the site. And we had about 16 comments, so I'm not going to go through each one. But a lot of these related to traffic volumes were pretty minor, just some small errors that Bowman addressed that did not change the results of the traffic study significantly. We had comments to include additional crash data, looking at a couple more recent years to see if there were any safety concerns out there recently. And they provided that information for us as well. They also, crash data, yep. We had comments related to the trip generation estimate for the proposed site, and they provided some confirmation on the land use codes they used, and just corrected some minor discrepancies between the volume figures and the trip generation tables. Then there were just a couple minor number errors on the volume figures compared to the analysis, which they corrected but did not impact the results. And now kind of jumping to the site plan and the site layout. We had a comment regarding the main driveway on Route 116. We thought there should be a painted stop line and a stop sign at the driveway, as well as detectable warning strips at the pedestrian crossing. Bowman then explained that MassDOT District 2 requested that not to be added to the site plan as they originally had done, because they deemed that this was not a major driveway. And so we just, we received those comments from MassDOT, and this comment had come from MassDOT District 2 ADA, and there was just one note to confirm with District 2 traffic to confirm that. So that's one item that we just flagged to confirm, but we do note that MassDOT does have jurisdiction on Route 116 curb cuts, so we defer to MassDOT for any site access onto the state highway layout. We then had just some minor comments on the truck turning movements, which were clarified, and new turning movement plans were provided for trash pickup, as well as emergency vehicles. And then we just asked for confirmation on the material for the temporary ADA path during construction, which they also provided. And I know the board had asked about the change from the full access driveway on Route 116, and then MassDOT, I believe, first it was right in, right out, and then MassDOT asked for a full access. So just to comment on that, we reviewed the existing volumes coming out of the Duncan driveway, and they were under 5 cars during the peak hours, which we found to be pretty low. So combining that with the low proposed traffic volumes coming out of the proposed site, we found these volumes to be very minimal, and we do not anticipate any safety issues based on the full access configuration as it's proposed right now. So yeah, I think that provides a summary of our comments. Does the board have any questions?
Two things I want to clarify that I heard, or that you can confirm. You disagree with Mass DOT District 2 on the stop line and the stop sign?
That's my opinion. You know, we've been on this side of it too, on the developer side, and we've received similar comments elsewhere in Massachusetts. So that's sometimes just the preference of the district on what they consider a major driveway is. But from my standpoint, as far as pedestrian safety goes and just driver expectation exiting the driveway, personally, I would want to see a stop sign and a stop line, but we defer to MassDOT because it is their jurisdiction.
So 1A then, before I get to 2, have you experienced communities that went with their own recommendation rather than Mass DOT, and what happens?
We would have a discussion with MassDOT, but at the end of the day, MassDOT will not approve your permit if you don't come to some resolution. I'm sorry?
It's not our permit. It's the applicant's permit. I mean, what's the ramifications to the town? Actually, let me say this for question 2. Despite your findings of safety relative to the intersection with Dunkin' Donuts, do you agree with Mass DOT that their exit setup is better than what we had proposed?
Quite frankly, the way the little island was set up existing, you may still have people turning left, into and out of the site, despite that restriction in place. I think probably everyone has seen that when you are supposed to have a right in, right out, and it's not always followed. And I guess I'm not exactly sure why MassDOT wanted that change, but from my perspective, you have such a small left turn traffic volume. I think it's pretty insignificant at the end of the day.
Thank you.
If I could, through the chair,
Yep.
for the record, regarding the stop bar sign and detectable warning strips, I think you had heard that we originally included them, and Mass DOT had requested us to remove them, just based on their permit review. I wouldn't say that there was a battle over them, so to speak. I think it was more just responding to what they were requesting. I personally, as from a site design standpoint, I'd rather have belts and suspenders myself, frankly, from a safety and pedestrian standpoint. I think I agree with the traffic peer reviewer. So that said, it's really more of a Mass DOT preference. I think they have reasons for that in the district. Again, the other turning movement, like the gentleman said, there's minimal volume. My experience has been when we have had those discussions on that with Mass DOT with regard to some of those full service movements, they don't want us to try to restrict them, and it doesn't really restrict, and then people are making movements against the grain or call them illegal, where if they can kind of make them, I think they want people to generally have the option. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So that I have run into that before. So when I wasn't totally surprised when they came back and said they would rather have it be allow for those movements. If it was higher traffic volumes, maybe it would create a safety concern, which kind of tees up the next portion of the discussion. Actually, I'll let the chair, sorry, I'll stop there, I'll let the chair decide what's next.
I remember Pat asking you at the last hearing, I mean, you know, Mass DOT, I mean, it's, you know, I know, you know, when you have to go get a permission or approval of plans, you know, in any authority, this happens to be Mass DOT.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that we recommend. I said, well, when I hear recommend, I said, well, I could take it or leave it. But, you know, there's almost like a veiled threat, like if you don't do my recommendation, maybe we won't get a permit, you know, sort of like.
It is their jurisdiction.
Yeah, and
they are the permit granting authority, so we generally try to, you know, unless there's something that's, you know, outlandish, we usually try to work with the jurisdictional authority, including yourselves.
And, you know, and I came to the conclusion that, you know, primary on Mass DOT or safety is not the top priority, or.
I don't know if I would agree with that. I think Mass DOT safety is probably their number one priority.
Well, I don't know.
Whether they do it well or not, I don't know, but I think that certainly complete streets and a lot of the things that are happening now. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, we're arguing about semantics, but it's just like, you know, usually when you come up with something to put it before them, they say, you must do this, you must do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. Recommend sounds like, maybe, you know, it's just, but you know who you're dealing with, and I can understand why you did, you know, made the change that you did. It's just, you know, the board is tasked with, you know, traffic flow and safety, and one of the questions I asked the peer reviewer was to comment on the relative safety of right in, right out, assuming that, you know, hey, people drive over islands. I mean, who knows? I mean, you can't, people will do anything. They'll pull a U. I mean, it's not like, but I asked on the safety, and I came to realize when I was talking with Bowman before that, you know, traffic studies are not well suited to evaluate safety.
Well, that was one of the points that I noted from the last public hearing, if I could, to the chair. So as you're aware, we submitted a summary of not only the review from Ty and Bond, but also the summary of all the information that's already presented today, so that you could look at it in the framework of safety. So that has been provided. I do believe that there was statements from the Ty and Bond letter, and I don't know if we can ask for, rather than me say it, I do think there were statements related to safety of these movements, the amount of volume, some of these items that were discussed. Is there, you know, I think there was a question posed, and I think some statements related to safety. Is that fair to say?
Well, I was going to sort of go there. I don't know how we want to get there. That's why I didn't know how to handle this whole thing, you know, for the benefit of the board.
Be happy to go through ours, or if Mr.
Well, let me among, you know, when we put out our you know, our request for proposal, you know, we wanted to do a peer review of the traffic study, which I think 80% of that's probably kind of automatic. And then I had some other questions, and the questions that I had, and you don't have to answer them right away, or I don't know how you want to approach them, but questions that we had, the board had concerns that a lot of the traffic data was taken on, based on 2 days of traffic observations, or whatever they, I'm stumbling for the word, measurements, or whatever they did for traffic.
Counts, maybe? Counts?
Yeah, and the chosen test days were Wednesday and Thursday, missing high volume periods of, you know, typically Monday morning and Friday PM when colleges are in session. the presented traffic data doesn't seem to correlate well with current state data, because they had counters elsewhere along 116. And the traffic report's future conditions and traffic growth projections appear low and did not include any growth projections from UMass or Amherst colleges. And the ZBA had a question about the number of vehicle trips that would be generated by the project. The report categorized the use as a variety store. Just questioning, is that the right Dollar General? I think you even touched on that in your talking. Would a different categorization, like a mini big box, yield a better assessment of vehicle trips? We really don't have any idea how many cars, how much this use would generate in terms of cars.
I think we do.
And I'm just reading through the questions.
Yeah, no,
Knowing that you've touched on a couple of them already. And then the whole question about asking about the relative safety of right in, right out versus really a full crossing intersection. So that
I can go through each one of those if that
okay,
is okay.
If you'd like to.
Yep. So the first question was on the data. So Bowman collected ATR data, which are automatic traffic recorder counts. Those collect speed, volume, and classification data. They collected those on Route 116. I think it was about 250 foot west of the site. So they had that data and they compared it to nearby MassDOT data. MassDOT collects data periodically on roads throughout the state. And during their collection and MassDOT's collection, they were both around 12,000 cars a day. So that kind of provided, a conclusion that the counts were valid. Now, during that same 2-day period in April, during one day, they collected turning movement counts at the study intersections. And these kind of really provide the basis for the traffic study. And, because these were done during the same period as the ATR data, they were able to conclude that, these numbers represent typical conditions. MassDOT has seasonal adjustment factors. So if you're collecting data in January in parts of the state, perhaps near the coast, you may have to apply a seasonal adjustment factor to increase your traffic volume to show higher volumes because they might be lower at the time. But in April, these seasonal adjustment factors is lower than 1, so you do not have to apply that adjustment factor. You could lower them, but Bowman did not do that, so this does provide a conservative estimate. And then I guess just touching on the days of the week, the counts, I think, were turning movement counts on Thursday? I just want to make sure I have that correct.
It was Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay, so
2 consecutive days.
Either way, since COVID and we've been seeing different commuting patterns, we have found that the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, tend to be more representative of typical conditions. We usually try to avoid Mondays and Fridays when traffic is a little atypical. There might be more hybrid work on Mondays and Fridays, so you may see lower traffic volumes on those days. I guess I'll just stop there. Is there any questions from the board on the traffic volume piece?
Well, I'll speak for myself, but I think this represents a lot of people. I think it seems that the traffic study doesn't match the eye test. We run up and down that road all the time, and there is a a lot of traffic volume that goes there. Like, and, you know, on Fridays, anecdotally, I live on Old Amherst Road, which is less than a half mile south of this stretch of highway. And if you come out there on a Friday and want to take a left, you might as well shut off the car and wait till you find a space to go through. The traffic is so heavy. And anecdotally, I've gone on a Saturday when there's not a lot of college traffic, and I've stopped at the one traffic light there, and I was on a Saturday, I was practically back to the Dunkin' Donut driveway. And it's, you know, and I think my board members and you know, public input would tell you that it seems like the amount of volume appears to be a little understated, but you know, and you know, I don't know. Does anybody else have, in terms of?
What's not mentioned at all is there's a bus stop there where there's just starting to pull out to go towards Amherst. That's where people are just starting to get into the left turn lane to go into the apartments behind that plaza. So and the Dunkin' Donuts, which was addressed, but I haven't heard much about just how cluttered that area is, and now the applicants have proposed left out full access driveway, which is somewhat planted right in that fairly active spot. And I haven't seen much of that in the traffic study, adding that element of a full service driveway around bus stops, left-hand turn lanes, pedestrians maybe not using the crosswalk. So that would be something of concern to me, I guess.
So maybe, perhaps, though, for the chair, that information was updated based on the change. It is in the Bowman report that was prior to the peer review. So that information should be reflected and certainly is in the documentation.
I will say that Bowman did submit a new traffic study report as a result of this peer review. I can't remember if I sent it out to you guys or not. I was getting swamped with stuff coming back and forth.
I just had a quick question. To kind of piggyback off of that, do you ever look at, a lot of the residents in that area have talked about school bus stops, how that is like a big school bus area. Is there any way to look at that while you're looking at the safety of the traffic flow?
Oh, is that a question for me?
Yeah. Like, is that typical to look at school buses? Because I know that there's a bus there, but then there's also an additional school bus that stops there.
I mean, it's not typical. I mean, if it was a concern of the community, you could. I guess I don't know exactly how that exactly relates to the development. You know, when you're saying when the school bus stops, the lights are on, the kids are crossing.
Right. There's additional pedestrian traffic, or if people have to drive their kids to the bus to get on. Like, there's just additional traffic that wouldn't really be quantified in a normal just formula if you don't take the school bus into account, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I got, you know, when the school bus is stopped, it's a state law for all vehicles to stop, so I wouldn't say that the development is introducing any safety issues here. But I mean, you know, the school bus or parents driving there, if they're driving through the intersection during the count period, they would be captured in the traffic counts at least. But that is a pretty specific item to look at in a traffic study typically.
Is it safe to say that, not as a criticism, but the traffic studies are just really concerned about vehicles? Is that, I mean, is there mention of, I mean, do they take into account pedestrians? Pedestrians, I mean, along that whole stretch, there's one crosswalk, it's at the traffic light. And there's apartments on one side and a whole bunch of apartments on the other side. And a lot of them take advantage of the UMass transportation system. And so they are crossing 116, either going to class, if you're on the wrong side, or when you come back. So a traffic study typically, do they look at pedestrian flow and pedestrian volumes?
As far as this study goes, that's kind of an existing issue, like independent of the study, so that's not something the applicant should necessarily study.
Elaborate
Yep.
Yeah.
on that. And so how we account for pedestrians is that we counted pedestrians. So we have actual record of how many people are using that crossing that we refer to. And we model that in our traffic analysis. In effect, how many times they are, stopping traffic to cross the street, essentially. And so we know from the data that was collected how many pedestrians are there. So they are accounted for.
So that was part of,
And in addition to that, when we submit the access permit, the Mass DOT, they look at all of that. So if there's any specific concerns related to pedestrian safety, we typically have to respond to those. So our Mass DOT access permit not only provides the site plan, the curb cut locations, the turning movements, the Bowman traffic report, but in addition to that, we're required to provide, if necessary, pedestrian safety upgrades, and then we also, believe it or not, submit a traffic management plan during construction. So it's a pretty comprehensive permit, and they look at all pieces.
As far as the pedestrian traffic goes, are you looking prior to the construction of this building? There's so much, do you project the number of students that will be using that crosswalk after the
I
project
can't
is
speak for
done?
Mass DOT and their criteria, but I think we look at both.
They take that into
Yeah, they take
consideration?
that, yeah.
Okay. And one other thing, do you have any estimates of how many cars will not be using 116 to go to Hadley and Amherst to shop if your store is built?
Trip distribution or something?
So
You may be reducing the traffic flow on 116 by providing a service that they don't have to drive to Amherst or
Oh, yeah.
So you,
Hadley for.
I think that's a factor, I don't know. if you
Well,
follow that.
you're talking about an increase in traffic, but that may be offset by the people that are, pedestrians that are using the store.
Yeah, right.
So you may be, and our main problem with traffic isn't the traffic after, it's the traffic right now. We're talking about what's going on right now, and that may not be impacted tremendously by your store. It might be a little bit, but again, that may be offset by pedestrians instead of.
How many trips are we capturing on site? Do you have that in a number?
so we have a PM peak of, I believe, 41 trips, that's round trip in and out from the site. About half of those are pass-by trips, so those are trips of people who are already on the roadway, not completely new. We model all 41 of them. And so I believe what you're asking is, do we account for, is there consideration for traffic lowering because people don't have to continue to drive down 116?
Yes, that'd be hard.
The short is that we don't do that because we want to provide a conservatively high account for what the potential impacts to traffic could be. So we take all of the existing traffic. We also inflate the traffic to account for future background growth, and we don't take any credits to reward traffic. Yeah.
When I look at this project, I would think that, if right now there's nothing on the other side where you want to locate your store. It's an open space, and it's a kind of a shortcut path. You see, it's dotted with shortcuts for people going to their apartments. But you know, once there's a store there, I'd be concerned that you know people be coming on a bus coming from the north, get off the bus to go to go to the Dollar General. They're going to have to walk all the way back to the traffic light, and I don't think, does your project include any sidewalks along it? Are there sidewalks?
You have a east side sidewalk.
Yeah, there's, I
East
believe,
side sidewalk.
this-
Sidewalk
Like-
shown
yeah.
in front of the
Well,
project.
well,
yeah.
Oh, in
There's
front
sidewalk.
of you.
Yeah.
But there would be, I just can see people trying to cut across the street it's a long way to walk. It's just an editorial comment on pedestrian safety.
I would think people, if the chicken cross the road,
Right.
the chicken's gonna wanna cross the road. And that is taken into consideration in the counts for pedestrians as well as the Mass DOT permit. So they certainly look at that. If they feel a crosswalk, we have multiple projects before Mass DOT at any given time. They typically will include pedestrian improvements if they feel they're warranted. They have certain criteria for that.
They haven't seen a need to.
Not in the permit response that we've gotten, and we're at pretty much 100%. They're expecting that any day.
Okay, if you want to proceed or?
Yeah, I mean, so I can keep going through your original list.
Sure.
So we talked a little bit about the future traffic growth. So that's, you know, projecting out future traffic volumes that, you know, are going to be, are capturing like small vacancies, like small residential homes, single family homes, things like that. Aside from any large developments, which there weren't any as the applicant identified. So they consulted with the Regional Council of Governments and determined that a 0.5% per year annual growth rate. And I believe your build year was 20, do you want to help me out here? 2032. So that no build condition in 2032 sets kind of the baseline comparison for their build analysis. And we agree with the methodology there. Anyone have any questions? Okay. So I think the next.
Ellie?
Oh, sorry.
Can I just ask a question about the projections? I noticed on Mass DOT when, you know, they don't do the actual counts every year. They do them some years and then some years are estimates. But their estimates appear to be, when they did just the estimated ones, they based it on 1% or 2% increases for the traffic stations in that area. So is there, I don't understand the discrepancy, like why it's okay to use 0.5% here if Mass DOT is using 1 and 2%. I'm just
So that the higher rates might be based on a statewide growth rate. Typically, you want to go on a more local level to go to the regional MPO to get more of your local growth rate. What kinds of growth rates are seen in this area? So that's what we would typically do, which the applicant also did.
And is it common to do sensitivity analyses with traffic studies? To be like, you know, what if our counts are off a little, like 10%, like just to see like how that would impact it and if that would be significant, just to, I mean, I know that's common with a lot of modeling research.
That's not something I would necessarily look for this size of development, considering the level of service results were acceptable in all cases. You know, more significant development, you might ask for that, but I personally, I would not in this case. All right, and then the next one here was the how the applicant estimated the proposed trips to the site. So they used Institute of Transportation Engineers land use codes, which is industry standard. They used code 814 for a variety store. So this is like your dollar store where you have a variety of products. And we did our own research with the land use codes and looked at some similar ones that might be considered, but based on the description of this one, we agreed that this was the code that best fit the proposed use of the site. Any questions? Okay. And then I think the next one about the right-in, right-out driveway. I know we talked about that a little bit. Is there any other questions on that piece?
I just think that somehow traffic studies aren't very good at evaluating safety. We're looking at safety, and I think let's see, I think in terms of, on point 21 of your original, you said that included right way in, so right in, right out. The statement was, while the full access driveway introduces more conflict points for entering and exiting vehicles, the anticipated left turn volumes in and out of the site are minor. The full access driveway as proposed is safely designed and does not introduce a safety concern. I think somewhere else, maybe it was even in your original traffic study, you mentioned that there might be more accidents, or maybe I just misread that. Sorry, but
Yeah, can I expand
Sure.
on that? So yeah, we didn't report any concerns or potential for increase in accidents. What we did review, and I think it was alluded to earlier, we provided a brief memo specifically just citing what was evaluated from a safety standpoint. No new information is provided here. It's all from what is previously presented in the traffic impact study. And so what we do look at is the guidelines that are set forth by various governing bodies, one of which is the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. So the long acronym, it's called AASHTO, and that is essentially the standard for traffic engineering in the United States. And what they do is, by defining these guidelines and standards, inherently and fundamentally it is a safety-based process that they go through to understand what are the needs of a particular design. For example, driveway design, traffic analysis. So in setting all of the guidelines that we apply here, we are inherently evaluating and assessing safety in as much as we are making sure that safety guidelines are being met or exceeded. And so we need to adhere to these standards. And so part of what we look at for that is sight distance at a driveway. We also look at the operations of the driveway, so that's the levels of service and the effects of turning movements and delays. We consider the access management, spacing between intersections, design vehicle accommodation. That's something that's been worked out here as well. And so going through all of these different criteria is effectively how we evaluate safety in a traffic study. And the findings that we presented in the traffic impact study, and which were peer reviewed, all determined that the driveway itself meets the design standards and is expected to operate safely and effectively. And that's really what we are tasked to do as engineers, is to apply those standards. We have that memo for the convenience of the board. It's public. We've submitted it today.
Is that the summary?
Yeah, it's a 2-page quick summary that just bullet points everything that was done through in the traffic impact study, understanding that there's a lot in there, and wanting to kind of elevate to the surface those safety concerns so that we can have a productive discussion about it.
Maybe that may be worthwhile to, I just got that today and I did not forward it to the board, so I did review it. I wonder if it's,
Basically, and through the chair, it's for clarification only, no new information, just strictly, like we said, we want to bring the cream to the top, so to speak, so that it's easily digestible as you guys are making your decisions.
do you want to summarize that letter or, oh wait, Dan, you got a question?
It's just kind of a general question. I keep hearing a lot about average times like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for traffic counts, because you don't want to include peak activity because that skews the numbers. How much different is peak activity from the middle of the week, and is that factored into the counts at all? Because the times that you're going to have a safety issue is during peak times, not during a medium or slow time. Are there actual DOT statistics that you can reflect on to see what the difference is between middle of the week or Monday, Friday during peak times when UMass is actually in session and traffic backs up for half a mile at a time?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I say typical conditions, but I did say April is above average traffic conditions, and that's looking on a daily basis. But when the traffic counts were collected and then analyzed, they are looking at the peak hours of the day. So they collected traffic data between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. And those are the typical commuter peak hours where you usually see your higher traffic volumes. And then,
but it also changes drastically depending on the day of the week.
Yeah, so we looked at, we also looked at Saturday as was one of the requests from the peer review process. And I think we also, it was mentioned earlier, the MassDOT count station was referenced here. And so what we do is we look at the count station, which provides continuous data. And the standard that we look at is the middle of the week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is what we look at for considering most typical commuter type roadways that typically have the highest generation of traffic between, say, 7 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock in the morning, and then be 4 to 6 p.m. If there's a school, it could be earlier, 3 p.m. And so before we collect the specific turning movement counts, we look at the data that MassDOT provides to ensure that we're capturing those localized peaks throughout the day. And then also the weekday versus Saturday question is something that we need to answer as well, because we want to understand, is the weekend a special consideration here? And we did that assessment for this project and found that the weekdays were higher than the weekend, so we went with the weekend. In terms of what we analyze for the delay, we isolate the morning and the afternoon peak hours. You can see in the traffic study, we have table 2 with hourly volumes. And so you can see throughout the weekday how the volumes vary. And we isolate those 2 peaks in that curve to specifically analyze those. We typically do not look at Mondays and Fridays because the driving factor is the overwhelming background traffic on the roadway, unless there's a very specific generator at the site that you need to be concerned about. And so we don't have to, as was mentioned by Ty and Bond, Mondays and Fridays are typically lower because traffic around the weekend is usually lower, unless there are special considerations for other uses in the area. So it's all backed up by MassDOT data that we use.
You could say, but like I say, I think this particular aspect of the report doesn't match the eye, doesn't seem to match the eye test. But it may or may not, it may not be significant, but I think people can tell you that when there's a jailbreak on Friday and they're leaving UMass, it is the traffic is really, really high, and it can be challenging even downstream to be taking lefts when they're leaving. And I think Monday's sort of the same thing. Monday morning, maybe not as much, but Friday afternoons you don't want to get out on a dangerous road and take a left because you run out of gas before you get there. That's an exaggeration, but did you want to go a little summarize your summary letter anymore, or?
I have one question. It's more for my information, I guess. So in 2022, we had another applicant that was in the area, and they did a traffic study. And the gross counts and everything are 14% higher in 2022 than they were in the one that you did, the one that you guys did. Is that a COVID thing? Is that why would we see a 14% reduction in the numbers 4 years later? You would think of we'd be seeing increases in the traffic when we had a traffic study done in 2022 when it was 14% more on gross counts.
Yeah, typically that's a little unexpected. I don't know what road that was on.
So it's right across the street from the proposed location.
Right down the road.
Yeah.
Not far.
Yeah.
Less than a mile.
I'm just curious as to why we have an overall reduction in the gross counts when UMass is bigger now and all that. So again, it goes along with what we're seeing versus what we're seeing on the data.
Well, yeah, so I can't speak to that specific count. I have not seen that data. I wasn't aware of another, we weren't provided another count to review here. I can say that the data that we look at all points to the counts being higher than a typical month. So we, as was mentioned, we look at the daily volumes that MassDOT collects. Now, there's to answer your question specifically, how could it be that different? I can't say why, but there would be any number of reasons why more traffic could be using a road if there was a closure that day or something unique going on. But we try to, in traffic engineering, kind of filter out the noise. So there's a lot of, you look at data, there's a lot of fluctuation. Things are changing day to day, but you need to understand what is the overarching trend that we see, and that's where MassDOT's data becomes so valuable because they have a station that just continuously counts data, and we can get very sound, accurate data from that station just up the road that gives us a affirmation that the counts that we went out to collect for 2 days didn't have something wacky going on. So I would say I can't speak to what that 14% that you're citing is coming from, but what I can speak to is that the data that we reference from MassDOT supports the counts that we collected as being appropriate for the analysis.
Okay. It's just a curious comparison.
Just to add to that, I noticed that the counts at the Amherst line are about 10% higher than the volume at Plumtree, even though there's no intersection in between those. So I wondered if you had, I just thought of it now because you mentioned that, and
There's a huge intersection
between East Plum Tree and the Amherst line.
and the apartments.
I think it's even,
Turn there every day.
okay.
If you're coming from Amherst into the apartments before you hit Plum Tree.
So you think the apartments are every 10%?
Are there any more changes or improvements or whatever you want to, mention as a result of the peer review as far as?
The plans have not changed, other than one item. The revised plans have a minor adjustment to a curb regarding the turning movement. There was a tire going over a curb, so we adjusted that de minimisly. It's just to make sure we don't, put a rut in the grass, so to speak. So that's really the only change. And then obviously the Bowman report stands on its own. And then just the summary is no new information, but just a summary of the safety-related factors looked at, both Bowman and I believe Time Bond's, documents.
I just want to add one thing. We just had a minor comment about a detectable warning panel adjacent the ADA parking space on site. I didn't check if that was incorporated, but just for the record.
I believe we would have incorporated that within Kentucky Mass DOT, but certainly not a problem. Just right near the building.
Oh, near the building?
Yeah, near the building, yeah. Sorry.
Talked about a sidewalk from the.
Yeah, just coming in and out of the building to
Amherst
make
Road
sure.
to the building.
Yeah.
So there are no sidewalks in front.
There are existing sidewalks in front, I believe. Right?
Oh, along Route 160.
Yeah.
So are or not?
There are.
But it goes to Clark Mountain Road and it stops at D&D, or there's no further sidewalk along that side of 116, right?
There are in front of our building to the intersection of Clark Mountain Road. I don't know that.
How far north does it go?
North goes past the apartments to the bus stop. North, or are you calling that?
It goes
north?
all the way to the crosswalk, to the traffic light?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right? I mean.
Because I don't think there's sidewalks there now.
Yeah.
I don't think there's sidewalks on that side of the.
I drove through there right before here. I'm pretty sure there is.
Yeah.
They are?
I can Google Earth it real quick, but yeah, it's on our survey.
Never mind.
Just because you don't.
Hey, Rob?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask you, this is kind of a hypothetical question, but in your first proposal, your Rev A original plan where the building was rotated,
Yes, sir.
you had a driveway and you had a proposed property line sort of going through the driveway. It almost seemed like you were
Yes, that's correct.
You were thinking that the driveway could be shared?
Yes, sir.
By, now, this has no such provisions, right?
That is correct.
Because, but you're still thinking of, that there may be an A&R to sort of, because 44 and parcel 44 and 100 go all the way to the traffic light, right?
Correct. Approximately, I believe, yes.
Give or take.
Yep.
But I'm just thinking offhand, I feel like that property is commercial, and someone could put the property owners could put a smaller retail use there.
If they can get through the ZBA.
Well, no, I think they can actually, if it's small enough,
That's
they don't even need a special permit. I think what snagged you with the ZBA because it was over 5,000 square feet.
And the Water Resources Protection District and a couple other things.
Well,
Yeah,
that-
so.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
do you think
I
MassDOT
could
is going to
see-
allow driveway cuts for them?
Yes, I do.
That, really? On
wouldn't-
Mascot to have it?
I wouldn't-
I don't know how Mascot,
They typically don't cut people off from their property. Based on my experience, I've never had an access permit completely denied unless it's a no-access portion of the highway, which they do have near exits and other locations. I'm not saying they couldn't deny it, I'm just saying I haven't seen it in 26 years.
I just would think that would be wildly unsafe. I mean, that's not even on you.
Well, I
mean,
don't know
that's-
where the curb cut would go, I haven't contemplated it, and you are correct. Originally, our first orientation of the building had looked at kind of a shared parking arrangement
Yeah,
between that.
it
and the
implied
bus
that.
stop.
I mean, it didn't state that, but it said, future A&R and,
Yeah, that ship has sailed on our end. Yeah, just not based on our informals and discussions.
and like I said, it doesn't apply at all, but,
And I don't know whether that will ever be developed or sold. Obviously, this has been here for a number of decades, so it'll be a while.
Stuart?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I had the same thought, that it's a shame that we did the aesthetics first and turned the building sideways because of aesthetics. Because if the driveway were located at the original location with the original purpose of sharing to both lots, I think that would be much safer than what could come down the road. Just to have a single entrance instead of a double. And I recognize that we did that.
No, but to that point, Stuart, if I could,
Yeah.
So Mass DOT did move us to where we are now. We actually were farther down, I guess we're calling it north or away from UMass.
You get Rev C.
Yeah, so they did absolutely
say that.
dictate where we had the curb cut.
Right.
But even so, if that building were back in its original orientation, you could create a singular driveway to the second lot. And if you had some cooperation, you could even get to the light. But, again, as what I've said, it's safe.
Well, my understanding is, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, at one of the very first hearings, I think you stated that according to our bylaw, it required 70 parking spots or something like that. And you came in and made the proposal that you don't need that much. And
I don't remember the number, but I do,
Yeah, I
do remember the general discussion, yeah.
there was,
Yeah.
and as a side effect of that was rotating the building. So it wasn't that the board was recommending that you rotate the building. It turned out to be because,
No, it was aesthetics.
yeah, well, but it wasn't, I don't think it was a board demand. I mean.
No, I don't think it was. It was certainly an accommodation. Mr. Eucalito, if you remember early on in the process, was here.
Mhm.
He asked what the board would prefer specifically. I believe went out of his way to have us redesign it so that the changes that were affected were not only the building orientation, some reduction in parking potentially, and some just general aesthetics. Not to mention being able to also accommodate a request from Mass DOT for the specific location of the curb cut. So, we got a lot in the suit.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of moving pieces in the project. Any other questions for Bond or Bowen? Seeing none. Okay.
Thank you.
Next on my agenda, wherever I went, it's sort of just some general business as it relates to this project. The board will remember, I think, I made a discovery that there are actually 8 criteria that we need to evaluate in terms in determining whether to grant a special permit. So I sent that out to you. It was a change that was made by the planning board. Is Dana here? Yeah. at the same time, they made changes to make changes to our bylaws to accommodate ADUs. It was a request from the state, it was an order from the state that we will have ADUs. And at the same time, they added, not related to the ADUs, but they added an 8th stipulation and actually modified number 7. If you look at the before and after, the first 6 stipulations are exactly the same. On the 7th stipulation, originally it said impact on drainage or stormwater management. The new 7th stipulation says impact on drainage or stormwater management or drinking water recharge areas. I looked, I couldn't find any reference to what is the definition of a drinking water recharge area in our bylaws. But I guess what our job is to apply it. I mean, I don't know if this would be considered a drinking water recharge area.
I don't understand. Isn't that the whole point of the second special permit? Isn't it the drinking water recharge area, the overlay district?
Well, the overlay district is a watershed district. It doesn't.
For drinking water.
Well, I mean, I think it's a lot of things beyond. I don't know about.
I was with the assumption that was for the drinking water recharge area or
Yeah.
the watershed protection.
Yes, it does.
Well, I think that's a large
Chemicals,
part of it,
allowed
but
chemicals or
right.
anything of that,
I
so
mean-
getting to drinking water, you just got it in general water.
So I'm thinking of the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funky because these people actually need a special permit from the planning board for development within the watershed district. So it's just a quirk of our bylaws, and we just added another quirk. I don't know if this. Dana, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Right, so I'm not gonna be on the spot. I'm just gonna say that the planning board proposed these changes. Don't say the planning board enacted these changes. The planning board proposed these changes, and it was town meeting that adopted these changes, and the changes are done. So it's up to the zoning board to enforce the changes as the town meeting imposed.
I understand that. I'm not looking for help in defining what drinking water recharge area is.
Zone 2.
I'm not sure it applies. I'd have to go back and look at
Mr.
check.
Bell, let me,
No, if it doesn't apply, then it's irrelevant and we're wasting all our time.
well,
I
let me
apologize, I was
waste
after
our-
that one. Can you just reiterate the question, because I do believe I have the answer, but I just want to make sure I have the question correct.
Ellie, there's a map, isn't there?
Yeah,
Of the
zone 2
watershed
map.
protection district, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's zone 1s, which are typically, 400 feet or so
From a well.
from a well.
From a
And then
well.
there's a zone 2 recharge area typically, which zone 2 is typically the water recharge area. There are other aquifers, but typically not regulated as a zone 2. Is that the question?
Could you
There's
refresh
also
my
a map.
memory, because I thought we saw some maps that showed the recharge area for the cliffside wells?
Well, those fall under a different regulatory category. They're in
Right, well,
water
if that's the
protection
zone
area
1 and
because
zone 2 they're
well,
talking.
there's too small. DEP doesn't require a well of that service level to do a zone 2 because that requires a lot of modeling and effort. to delineate that. So that's just based on a calculation based on pumping rate. So
Because I know
it's kind of a rough estimate, I would say.
but I thought one of those zones sort of cut the parcel, but not near where the building's going up.
I believe that's correct,
And
generally.
and I think the zones for our well, which is up Clark Mountain Road a bit, I think neither one of them. So, just something else for the board to sort out with that involved.
So,
And then-
if I could, Mr. Chair, so we met all the Mass DEP stormwater management standards
Yeah.
based on the location that we're in. We have obviously the soil evaluations related to where groundwater is located, or seasonal high groundwater is located vertically. So to our knowledge, the peer review of the stormwater as well as the soil evaluations and the design of the best management practices for the stormwater system all meet or exceed the criteria and the 10 standards for Mass DEP.
I'm just figuring out how the board deals with interpreting the criteria and how to apply them, if applicable.
Yeah,
I mean, like, this was a new surprise, and, you know, we'll have to, maybe some further research into this, but I'm not sure that this location, as indicated there, is in a drinking water recharge area. But we'll have to figure that out. And if it does, we'll apply that when we assess that criteria. And the new one, number 8, was impact on public safety and municipal services. That's a new one? My first blush was, I mean, we have number 2 is traffic flow and safety, impact on public safety and municipal services. We have number 3, which is adequacy of utilities and other public services. Seems to be some overlap there, but that's the fun of being on a zoning board, is to untangle these things and apply them where necessary. So that.
Mr. Chairman, this is a part of our application, just so you can see the hatched area is the water protection area. So if you look at the...
Well, the hatched area is watershed district, just the whole thing.
Yes, sir.
I know that.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure.
Oh, okay. I thought you were looking for where...
The whole side of, on the east side of Route 116, that's all in the watershed district.
Correct. And there's some language related to residential, I think it's residential in the ordinance, I forget. I have to look back, but I remember looking at that about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
This project has so much nuance, like I said. You need a special permit to do something in the watershed district, but the planning board, it's not us, so it's like, okay. That be as it may. So we'll just have to be aware of that, and as we, when we approach the decision stage, we'll have to wrestle with these issues. And let's see. I printed a whole bunch of agendas. Just Give me back my agenda. Okay. Next steps, where we are here. I think we've adequately thrashed the stormwater and drainage and peer reviews on that, and traffic flow, traffic and traffic impact study and peer review there. What we have left to do is I still have more public comment and input to be
Question about that.
disseminated. Yes, sir.
We got a lot of public input. A lot of it is repetitious. Can we limit it to new information, which they do at town meeting? The moderator chooses okay, if there's nothing new, we can hash out traffic safety and stormwater drainage to everybody that comes in with the same letter, same concerns. But if we limit it to something new, it will cut our time down. I mean, I know you want people to have their opinions.
There certainly is a fair amount of repetition in the stuff that we're getting.
We've been a long time at this.
Yes, I know. Believe me, I want to get to the end of this as much as anybody else. It just requires going through and reviewing them and determining like, well, I could just put this in one category or the other. So
Yes.
I mean, my attempt to do public input and comments was a questionable success. The last
It was
time we did it.
very well
But
done, yeah.
there
It was a
was
good
some
meeting.
good, there was,
Good points.
a lot of what I have left is, very similar in nature, like you say. I will leave that, I'll ponder that. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm not sure, one more issue that was on our list to do was dealing with the driveway separation issue. You have to go back to when we had a lot of questions about the documents and the interpretation of it, and it was left as an open issue for the board to either deal with or not deal with, and maybe council could help me here, because it turned out to be a subject of litigation. So this very particular issue has been taken to court, for lack of better words, by the applicant, and it's in process. I strongly feel it really is a zoning board issue, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's a matter that really should be decided by the zoning board. But I'm wondering if, considering the legalities that surround it, is it best left untouched, and we arrive at a decision without even addressing the subject, or I mean, Counselor, I don't know. I mean, does that? I'm asking the board. Does that matter actually hinge on weighing whether you vote for or against to grant a special permit?
And if I may, Mr. Chair,
yeah.
and good evening to everyone here. Michael Dortenzio, Town Council. Nice to see everyone again. So if I might just quickly provide an update on the litigation, just the public nature of it, so the board is all up to date, and then we can talk a little bit about next steps. So the case is active. Our next status hearing is on August 7th. I'll look forward to seeing Attorney Phil on Zoom on August 7th. And so we're currently in the discovery phase. So we have prepared responses to the plaintiff's first set of requests for admissions, the plaintiff's first set of interrogatories, the plaintiff's first set of requests for production. Those are fairly standard exchanges in discovery. We have also served some discovery requests on behalf of the town on Attorney Pill. So we are in the process of filing those materials with each side, and I want to publicly thank Town Clerk Wendy. Wendy has spent a number of hours in the bowels of Town Hall searching for old pieces of paper. And,
Wendy's done a tremendous
and
amount.
we really appreciate her help doing that. So, so that discovery will continue for the next few weeks. As I say, we go back before the judge for a virtual hearing on August 7th. That's where the matter currently stands from a court perspective. Now, to bring us back a few months ago when this court matter first started, you'll recall that the statute that the plaintiff is sued under allows the plaintiff to sue whether or not this board has reached a decision, right? The statute allows an applicant, in fact, whether they've even applied for a permit, to seek relief from a judge in the form of a judicial determination as to a bylaw's validity. And so we were operating and continue to operate on concurrent tracks that are moving separately, but both going down together. So where we had last left the driveway separation bylaw requirements was there were a number of other matters, water-related issues, traffic-related issues that this board was going to consider. We would work through those matters, and then depending on where we were, we either had heard from or had not heard from the judge by the time we were ready to make a decision. Obviously, we are under deadlines of the Zoning Act. At some point, this public hearing will conclude, and then we'll have to issue a decision within the time allowed. So the primary question for the board is, does it feel that the driveway separation requirements as written prevent a special permit from being granted, right? If the board, for example, feels the driveway separation requirements are not an issue, then that's perfectly fine. That's the board's determination, and that will resolve that question. If the board feels that applying the bylaw as it is written means that the special permit cannot be granted given the current design of the plan, then we'll have to incorporate that into a final decision at the conclusion of the process. And the court case will ultimately clarify for that one way or the other, right? Just by way of background, this is a bylaw that was based on our research, the best we can understand. And it could be new paper, always can get discovered. But the best we can understand was originally enacted by town meeting on January 23rd, 1975. It was sort of recodified, but without any major substantive changes on November 29th, 1999. So this is a bylaw that has been around for a long period of time and has not before been challenged. We never predict what a court will do, and of course we're not going to talk the strategy in open session. But just to say that from a 10,000 foot level, the court will ultimately, presuming the plaintiff continues with the case, as I would anticipate they will, the court will ultimately give us a determination as to the validity of the bylaw. But what that court will do in the land court doesn't affect your determination here now. You get to make your own independent conclusion based on what the bylaw says today. And if the judge comes and says, actually that bylaw is valid or not valid, you'll respond to that information. But your job as zoning board members is to review the bylaw, apply it, and make a determination from there. Stuart, I don't want to call on you though, I want to give that to the chair.
Through the chair. If the board finds that the project can be voted on and actually votes for the project, will the court case go away?
Well, that would be a question that we have to discuss with the applicant at that point, and that's entirely your prerogative. It is your choice whether you believe that these driveway separation requirements apply to this project. And you've had different legal arguments made by myself, by counsel for the applicant, so it's entirely your call, just to be clear on that. If you were to say that the driveway separation requirements, for whatever reason, do not apply to this project, and you grant the special permit, the applicant, because the statute the applicant is sued under doesn't actually require any permit be issued, could presumably continue with the case, and we'd have to discuss whether they would want to continue that, and that would really be a question for the select board about whether to continue to defend it on our end. So I think if that were to happen, both sides would need to reassess and decide what they want to do.
We're not, if you grant the special permit and you decide it doesn't apply, we're going to drop the other lawsuit, and the advantage you have is you still have that driveway separation requirement on your books. And the question, since this is the first time since 1975, 41 years, that anybody has challenged it, the town certainly is in a stronger position if you decide it doesn't apply, grant us the special permit. But I will stipulate and agree here tonight that if the special permit is granted and you decide that driveway separation provision does not block the special permit, we're gonna, you know, dismiss the case. And obviously I want to see the special permit, but if we get, that's what we're here for, is a special permit. And the two kinds of dismissals are with prejudice or without prejudice, so I'd have to see the special permit. But I'm definitely saying the case is gone. If, in fact, we get a special permit we can live with, then I think we would agree to a stipulation of dismissal with prejudice, which at least means we get to build the project and you don't ever have to worry about us challenging that again. And we all go our separate ways, and the town saves many thousands of dollars. That's for sure. Neither one of us works cheap.
No comment.
So ultimately, it's a question for the board. As I say, I think you've read the legal analyses and would be happy to discuss those. But piggybacking on what Michael said, this is what we say at our office. That's why you, the board members, get paid the big bucks to get to make the decision. So at least I can bring candy if anybody.
I suggest that the board, I mean, you sort of hear what's in front of us. I don't think we have to make this decision whether or not to act on that bylaw issue, whether to take it on or not. We don't have to do that right now, but I think we're gonna have to do it soon, because my anticipation is that we may be at a endpoint before the court gets to an endpoint. I mean, I don't know, you look at your crystal ball, I don't know.
It's entirely possible.
I mean, it'd be nice if that got decided before we got to the end of ours, but I don't think we're gonna have that luxury, and there may be consequences to the choice that we take, so.
Mr. Chair, one of the items that we discussed internally before the meeting this evening was kind of what we feel, I forget the term you used, but carved up or, looked at these reports and certainly analyzed and provided additional information as requested, even suggested on our behalf that additional peer review be, completed. We do believe that from a technical standpoint, that all of the information is there for you to render a decision. We understand that you may need to mull that over. We do also feel that many of the 14 public hearings that we've attended have been repetitive and we're not discrediting any of the questions or concerns of the neighbors, but certainly there has been some repetition. So respectfully, this evening, we would ask that the ZBA, if possible, see their way to close the public hearing so that I can go watch Mexico win. And hopefully we could, you guys you'll have the time you need to, render a decision. Obviously, your council can tell you that we have a certain amount of time to do that. Seems like it would be ample. And I do believe we've exhausted all of the technical submissions at this point.
Stuart?
I completely agree with the desire to close the hearing. However, just based on our last meeting where we got input from the public, there were noted that there were other letters that we hadn't, as a board, received. And I think we can't close the public hearing until we've really seen them. I don't think we have to go, as Jim was bringing up, I don't think we have to go through them in their commonality, but I think we have to receive them.
I agree with your thinking, and I also agree with Jim Williams, that maybe we can cut through some of the chain. I mean, I tried to do it at the last hearing, and that was a labor of love is not the right word, but it was, and you weren't even here. You subjected your
Associate, Attorney
associate.
Miss.
Yes.
If you've got the stuff, it's in the record.
Yeah.
And we
Well-
stipulate and agree that it's already before you, and so you close the hearing, that would mean that cuts off anything new. But what you already have in your hands is a public record, and you would have every right to review
I have in my
it.
hands stuff that came to me directly. And they have not seen all of
It doesn't matter.
But you don't have to keep the hearing open to circulate it to your board.
In your hands, it's a public record, and it's been submitted to the board, and I stipulate and agree that all of that material, you having received it as the chair, legally, it's been submitted to the board, it's a matter of public record, and the board has every right to review all of that after the close of the hearing, because it was submitted before the hearing was closed. Which is why we hope you'll close the hearing, please.
Counselor, I'm not inclined to close the hearing. I hear, I hear, never mind. But I'm suggesting one more public session that we can go through the public, those letters. And also decide on whether we really want to touch that issue on the driveway separation issue.
That can
I
take
see-
place after the hearing is closed.
Well, if we're gonna, I don't think
Yeah,
that
it's
that would
not
have to be
for
done
public
in no.
I mean, it could be for public.
And Mr. Chair, if I may just, I don't know if you've taken public, we haven't necessarily gotten into the specifics of the driveway separation requirement. I mean, we've had extensive written material, but we haven't discussed your thoughts on it extensively as a board, and so to the extent that you believe, I mean, it is fairly technical, but to the extent that you believe public comment on the application of the driveway separation bylaw could be helpful, then perhaps one further session, could accomplish that goal. Beyond that, I think we've probably gotten to the end of what we'll get from public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remind the board that I think it was hearing 2 and 1 and maybe 3 that we addressed all those items. They're on the record. We had an extensive discussion about those separation requirements. Even before coming to the ZBA, we actually went informally to the planning board and discussed it there. So we have vetted you're going to have to make a decision at some point. We vetted these items, and respectfully, I understand how difficult you feel your decision is, but there's no new information coming, and we did, for 3 hearings, discuss that. And that was probably before your involvement.
And it might have been, I do also think that, and I don't know the extent to which there's additional information that would have come after the written materials that we have all sort of produced, and whether that would generate any additional feedback, it may not, but.
And that's also, interpretation of a bylaw is a question of law, okay? That's not a matter that the public is here to comment on facts and on the project. Interpretation of a bylaw is between you and your attorney, and actually one advantage of litigation pending, you can go into an executive session and discuss that, okay? And so I can't imagine why you would need to keep the public hearing open, since, I can't imagine, all the public would be giving you are legal opinions, interpreting the bylaw, and you've got perfectly competent lawyers to do that, and you can do that in an executive session. And indeed, if I were you, I would want to do that in an executive session outside the public hearing process, because litigation is pending. And it's already before the court.
I think it's safe to say that the public comments that I've seen don't address the driveway bylaw. I mean, it's like, much of it, like Jim says, is much of the same that we've.
Mr. Chairman, I'll remind you, there's been 14 public hearings.
You don't have to remind me. I damn well know.
And 3 of them did discuss that.
Steve, I'd like to make a motion that we close the hearing.
I'm
It's entirely the board's prerogative.
There's no second yet. It's just a motion.
A motion's been made. All right, not hearing any seconds. Well, do I hear a second?
Any discussion?
He's closing it right now, Jim, sorry.
No, clerk will close this.
So, Dana?
So, Mr. Chairman, at the last public hearing, you invited, I believe, 3 residents to come and speak as kind of representative public comment. And at that hearing, you committed to doing a more broad outreach and sharing the information that's been shared only with you. And I think that you owe it to us to honor that promise that you made.
I will say that we asked Will to, one of our residents, to do some redaction, and he did send me that, and I didn't, because of what's on our plate today, I didn't do that. So I'm suggesting that we have one more hearing, and so it's one more hearing session. To do that, wrap up public comment in a nice tidy package, and maybe decide whether we're going to touch the driveway issue or not. And I don't know, are you saying because it's already under litigation that can be done in some sort of executive session?
Well, I think what Attorney Pill, and I don't want to mischaracterize his point, but his point is that there is an executive session for discussion of strategy with respect to litigation. To the extent we're discussing strategy with respect to the litigation, we can do that in executive session. To the extent you're discussing conditions of the permit, that's typically an open session, and you could have a fine line one way or the other here. But your opinion as to whether or not the bylaw applies, we can discuss offline whether you would want to have that in executive session. I think it's open to the board. I would be fine either way.
And I'll stipulate and agree, because I think we're the only ones who would be complaining under the open meeting law. I stipulate and agree here tonight that any discussion you want to have about construction, interpretation, and application of the driveway separation agreement, because those issues are pending before the court, that qualifies as litigation strategy, and if you wish, you have every right to discuss that with your attorney in an executive session. God knows you live in a fishbowl anyway. You might at least take advantage of what you can to, discuss privately with your lawyer like anybody else can do. I hope that, there's nothing else to submit then. How soon can we have another session? Please, please, please. How often do you meet?
Can I ask a question? If, I know in the beginning of this process with the original design, you received comment from fire and police. Have they commented on any of the new layout?
No.
So would that, it's not its own meeting, it's just a comment from them, just saying that.
On the new, the only thing that's changed, from their point of view, is just the.
Like, do they have adequate turning rate,
All of that's been
access?
provided, yeah. So we provided additional, through the request of time bond, we provided additional turning movements within the site, just to prove, but the design itself hasn't changed since the submission. Actually, we did, I take that back, we did adjust the curve about 1.5 feet or something like that. There was a little, there was a wheel that went, or a tire that went over the curve a little bit, so we adjusted that. But everything is just in support of what has already been submitted.
And if it's big enough for a semi, it's big enough for a fire engine.
And again, Mass DOT being jurisdictional over the curb cut and access.
That's like within the parking lot area itself. That's not really.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Time bond had been.
And I saw a reference to that.
Yeah.
Question, Mr. Attorney. When you say an executive session, would that be the whole board or just you and me?
It would be the whole board. You and I can talk at any time,
Right.
as we have, and but to talk with a quorum of the board, we could do that in the executive session if the board wanted to. And so perhaps you and I can talk offline about what might make sense for the next agenda, and you know, we can have that as an option, and then the board can determine whether or not they want to take advantage of it. Right? You put things on the agenda. That doesn't mean you have to actually use it. The only other thing I just want to remind everybody of is, again, in the Zoning Act, Section 9, which governs the granting of special permits, once the public hearing is closed, that starts a clock of 90 days for us to file a decision. That can be, of course, extended by written agreement between the parties, but just so folks know what that clock is, when it starts, when it ends.
And the reason that's a really nasty decision is, and it's in the 14th paragraph of Chapter 48, Section 9, we can ask for what's called a constructive approval. And 90 days, hopefully, is plenty of time for you all to discuss, because all your deliberations are after the hearing, and, you know, writing a decision, whatever it is. In other words, 90 days should be plenty of time, but, you know, just to be fair, we do want to put you on notice. I've only done it once in 46 years, but it was the same thing. It was the Holyoke Planning Board. I warned them in advance. I said, we're going to do this, and they ignored it. So I did it, and in the end, we settled the case. But it is there, so that's a tough timeline. You got to meet the 90 days, but hopefully that'll be enough.
And may I just clarify through you, Mr. Chair, Attorney Pill, when you say we're going to do this, did you mean file for a constructive approval?
Yeah, I mean, on day 91.
Understood. Okay,
Yeah.
that's where I thought you were going. I just wanted to make sure.
So thank you for the clarification. Yeah, that's what I did in Holyoke. You know, I gave them plenty of notice, and they ignored it, and then on day 91, I filed the constructive approval with the town clerk. And one of the reasons that's a mean timeline is the statute then puts on you the obligation to appeal that constructive approval within 20 days. So, and I think essentially the legislature's message is make your decision and file it with the clerk within 90 days.
So that was just for information. So we do need to, it appears, establish a further date.
Yes. And I'm thinking as maybe part of that is a portion to be an executive session, maybe?
I think we can put that on the agenda, and then we can discuss, so folks know who may not have gone into executive session before. We begin an open session. We take a roll call vote, and we discuss whether we want to go into executive session. If the board would like to, we'll ask the public to leave. We'll discuss, then we'll pick back up with the public portion after.
Good.
Through the chair, could I just ask, I guess kind of a weird question to your attorney. Would you anticipate that executive session would take place before them closing the public hearing or after?
Good question. I would probably put it on the agenda first, just not anticipating what questions they would want to ask, and so by virtue of that, before.
Thank you.
But they could do it, I mean, in other words, and it's up to you to advise them, but I would hope what they would do is have the public hearing, close the public hearing, and then we could all go home.
Yeah. Well, we might, it could be that we, when we announce this, we would, typically what we do is, you know, meeting starts at 6:30, executive session 6:30 to 7, meeting with the public begins at 7, that way nobody has to sit around.
That would be nice, thank you.
Yeah, I mentioned that because sometimes there are some people who very much like to watch the going into executive session, make sure it was a roll call vote, all of those things, but we'll make sure it's all done correctly.
And what I'll say is, I waive those formalities because obviously you have attorneys who know exactly what to do. So I'm not going to hassle you about, you know, the procedures for executive session for God's sakes. We all have more important things to discuss than that one.
This would be a first for a zoning board session. I've been involved with executive sessions, but it's always been someone else's, not mine. So, shall we,
propose a new date for Stuart, you had a question?
I
No?
do, but we can vote.
Okay.
I would probably suggest that we'll have some public input and comment stuff after that, not that same hearing date.
I would, yes. Yes, Mr. Chair.
So,
Week of the 27th is not good for me if we're talking July.
I've got a lot of conflicts early in July, so. And you say that, when is the, you got the court appearances in August, so how about the first week of August?
Well, we have a court appearance on Friday the 7th, which is by Zoom. So, though I don't anticipate, I don't know how much we'll learn at that hearing. That's sort of a check-in at the close of discovery, figure out what's next.
Yeah, it's just a status conference, and I can tell you what we have in mind is, once discovery ends, which is now at the end of July, what I plan to ask the court to do at that hearing is set up what's called a briefing schedule for a motion for summary judgment. I mean, what I've seen so far, obviously I gotta look at their discovery and they've gotta look at mine, but hopefully the most cost-efficient way for everybody is not to have a live trial. Is to be able, so that's, in other words, nothing's going to be decided substantively there, and now at least you know what I'm going to be asking for.
I would agree with Attorney Hill that you don't need to plan the next CBA hearing around the court
I
status.
wasn't going to plan it that way.
Jim, are Wednesdays off the table?
No,
Can we do it Wednesday?
Can we do it 15th or 22nd?
that activity is terminated.
Oh, sorry.
What date were you suggesting, or what window you were suggesting, Stuart?
The 15th or the 22nd of July?
July or August?
July.
Oh, I got a family reunion that week,
Some are both of those that work for everybody else.
The week of July 20th?
It's the 27th.
my reunion's on the 25th, so years.
Was that no good for you?
Not good. You can do it the week before or the week after, but.
Well, Hollis, you said 27th is the week of the 27th?
Yeah, and actually, I'm out of town that week, and I have out-of-town guests that following week in August, like
I'm out of town
August
the
4 to 9, something like that is toast.
Jim, how's the 15th?
I mean, it'd be pushing about the 14th or the 16th of July?
Can you do the 15th?
15th would work for me.
15th is no good for me.
14th will work.
14th or 16th of July?
14th.
16th would be more convenient for me, but I can always be on Zoom, so don't make the decision around me.
We're executive session, we want you in person.
Yeah, 16th is good for me.
16th would be more convenient. I can see it on that
Amanda,
day.
16th of July?
July 5th.
Mm-hmm.
Can we,
6:30, or is that a problem?
can we knock off, can we get started early and knock off early?
Earlier than 6:30?
Yeah, I gotta fly after that, so, you know, I can get out of here at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Well,
I can make it.
can we try,
What's
at least 5:30? Stuart, is that a, how,
Yep. The 16th of July?
16th, that's 5:30? Is that, I mean, if we go 2 hours, that's not probably, you gonna go to Bradley?
I can do, yeah, I can do that. Actually, it's probably gonna be Westfield.
Oh, out of Westfield? No
Yeah.
problem.
It'll be a private gym.
So the public will start at 6 PM then, hopefully?
That would be the intention. So, hearings continue to,
And Mr. Chair, would we be able to say 5:45? Would that work for you? Only because I'm coming from Pittsfield and in case the court goes to 4:30. 5:45 I'll be able to make.
So, the issue of the 14th is your live appearance?
Correct, and I'm happy to. if you
well,
want Zoom.
I mean, we could,
We could do 14.
I mean, I was being
I'd rather not
facetious.
meet that early. Yeah, I could do the
I was being sort of
I'd rather do the
creative.
14th.
What's that?
I said I'd rather do the 14th than
Yeah, me too.
5:30.
Yeah, me too.
State, are you getting here?
14th works good for me.
14th?
14th is fine with me, it's just.
It's Tuesday, the 14th. You don't have a planning board meeting that day, do you?
No, it's on the 13th that week.
So Tuesday, July 14th at, do you want to go early?
No, I'm wide open that day.
Stuart, I mean,
6 or 6:30?
6:30, good?
6:30?
And Mr. Chair, I will be here one way or the other.
Yeah.
I can be here in person, I will be, and if on Zoom, I'll be here on Zoom.
So,
Okay. And the first half hour will be dedicated to executive session?
Correct, and if we don't need the full half hour, then we'll have a stretch break and start with the public bid.
Public at 7.
So we should be here at 7, okay.
two,
Yes, sir.
two things. Going back to Jim's motion to close, I think it'd be helpful if we received everything ahead of time, if at all possible.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
then we don't know what we
yeah.
Everything in terms of,
what you've received, what you've received from the public that we have not received.
okay,
Right.
that's going to be fun. I didn't know if you were talking about relative to the executive session, so, okay.
Well, my second question is, Attorney, could you tell me what that listing on the agenda is going to say?
In terms of the executive session or the rest of the agenda?
No, executive session.
The executive session will say to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, and then it will name litigation, which is Toledo Development Group LLC, the town of Sunderland. You have a follow-up question, I can tell.
I have experience, but, which is not helpful. Did you say earlier, though, that it is up to the select board whether to proceed with the case?
Correct. Yeah, ultimately, the select board is the agent for the town, and they determine whether or not to proceed or settle or take whatever action with lawsuits.
Thank you.
But that doesn't, in my opinion, prevent you from discussing the matter in executive session to the extent that you're advising the select board, discussing legal strategy. It is the, quote, town of Sunderland that is being sued.
And again, I think the case law is clear that a town board or a town official is in effect part of the town. It's analogous to directors, officers, employees of a corporation. You sue the corporation, the privilege would apply to everybody in that corporation. And again, I stipulate and agree that there's no problem with what I agree with what council just said. Suing the town means the zoning board is well within the privilege. And I think it was a 2015 administrative decision. They got blasted for not naming the litigation. Yeah.
Include that on the agenda.
Yeah. They got upheld, but they said you goofed on that score.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Fun game.
So I will count on town council to help me write that
Absolutely.
notice and agenda.
Yep. Happy to. Happy to. So let me just confirm the time, if that's okay. So we've got Tuesday, July 14th at 6:30 p.m. The board is going to meet and go into executive session. And then for the benefit of the public watching, the executive session itself the open session where we're going to be talking about substantive matters will begin at 7 o'clock. But if anybody would like to come and watch us go into executive session, they're technically allowed to be here at 6:30. So. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, this hearing is continued to Tuesday, July 14th,
6:30.
6:30.